No one at the Anderson estate ever imagined that the quiet woman who mopped their marble floors would one day become the reason the family learned how to live again. For years, Ethan Anderson's mansion had been silent, not the peaceful kind of silence, but the kind that echoes after loss, the kind that feels heavy, like grief frozen in time. Ethan was one of the wealthiest men in New York, CEO of Anderson Tech, a billionaire built on innovation, deadlines, and the illusion of control. But behind all that money stood a man who had lost everything that mattered. His wife, Claire, died during the birth of their daughter, and the child, little Emma, was born with a neurological disorder that left her unable to walk or speak properly. Ethan turned his pain into walls, thick, cold, and unbreakable. He hired the best doctors, nurses, and therapists, but no one could make Emma smile. Not once, until she arrived. Her name was Grace Miller, a 30-year-old woman with no formal medical degree, just a recommendation letter from an old housekeeper, and a quiet confidence that didn't seem to belong in a world of billionaires. Grace didn't talk much during the interview. She simply said, "Sir, I can't promise miracles, but I believe no child is beyond reach." Ethan almost dismissed her on the spot, but there was something in her tone, calm yet certain, that made him hesitate. Against his logic, he hired her. 3 weeks later, something strange began to happen inside the mansion. Emma, the girl who never responded to anyone, started laughing. At first, Ethan thought he imagined it, but when he checked the security footage, he saw Grace sitting on the floor beside Emma, both covered in paint, singing off-key nursery rhymes while drawing with crayons. No therapy session, no expensive equipment, just connection. The next morning, Ethan stormed into the playroom. "What exactly are you doing?" he demanded. Grace didn't flinch. "Teaching your daughter how to talk again," she replied, smiling softly. Ethan's tone hardened. "She can't talk. The doctors—" Grace interrupted him gently. "The doctors told you she wouldn't, but did you ever ask her?" Her question lingered in the air like a knife cutting through pride. Ethan left without a word, but that night, for the first time in 3 years, he couldn't sleep. Over the next few days, Ethan noticed more changes. Emma's hands began to move with purpose. She followed sounds. She smiled whenever Grace entered the room. Grace had turned the sterile nursery into a small world of color. Paper butterflies, soft music, sunlight streaming through curtains. It was no longer a hospital room. It was home. But something about Grace didn't add up. Every evening, she disappeared into the guest house behind the mansion. One night, curiosity got the better of Ethan. He followed her. Through the window, he saw Grace writing in a leather-bound notebook, tears running down her cheeks. Beside her, a small framed photograph, a little boy in a wheelchair. Ethan stepped back quietly. He didn't need to ask. That night, for the first time, he realized Grace was healing someone else's wound by mending his. Weeks passed. Emma began forming words, small ones at first, broken sounds that barely made sense. But to Ethan, each syllable was a miracle. Then one afternoon, while he watched from the doorway, Emma whispered something that stopped his heart. "Daddy!" Ethan froze. The word hit him harder than any boardroom victory ever had. He fell to his knees, tears flooding his eyes. Grace stood behind Emma, smiling softly. "She's been trying for days," she whispered. Because a child had just given him something money could never buy, forgiveness. But peace never comes without questions. One morning, as Grace was feeding Emma breakfast, Ethan noticed a file sticking out from her bag. It had a hospital logo on it, St. Mary's Children's Center. He opened it. Inside were medical reports for a boy named Noah Miller, paralyzed, deceased, Grace walked in, pale. "You went through my bag?" Ethan's voice was low but firm. "Who is he?" She hesitated, then said softly, "My son." The air between them went still. Grace explained that Noah had been born with a rare condition that doctors labeled irreversible. For years, she believed them. She did everything they said, every treatment. Grace had spent years fighting a system that silenced her. And when she lost the battle, she decided to dedicate her life to helping children like him, children the world gave up on. "I couldn't save my own son," she said, tears falling freely. "But maybe I can save someone else's." Ethan stood frozen. Every ounce of judgment he'd felt for her melted into shame. The next morning, he called her into his office. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly, "for not seeing what you saw from day one." Grace shook her head. "You don't owe me anything, Mr. Anderson. You just owe your daughter your time." From that day, everything changed. Ethan stopped hiding behind his grief. He joined Grace in Emma's therapy. They cooked, painted, even made messy little science projects together. Laughter replaced silence. But the true miracle came 6 months later. Emma took her first step. The same girl the doctors declared permanently disabled was now standing, trembling, unsteady, but standing, her tiny hand gripping her father's. Grace cried silently in the corner, whispering, "Noah, we did it." That evening, Ethan found Grace on the balcony, staring at the sunset. "I've been meaning to ask," he said. "Why didn't you ever tell me about your fight with the hospital? You could have gone public." Grace smiled faintly. "Because I didn't want revenge. I wanted redemption, and I found it here." Ethan nodded slowly. "Then let me help you." Within months, Ethan launched the Noah Foundation, a nonprofit supporting families of children misdiagnosed or neglected by the healthcare system. Grace became its director. Their story spread across the country, inspiring countless families to fight for hope instead of surrender. 1 year later, during a press conference, a reporter asked Ethan, "What made you trust a nanny over a team of world-class doctors?" Ethan smiled gently. "Because she reminded me that healing doesn't always come from medicine. Sometimes it comes from love." As the cameras clicked, Emma ran across the stage, laughing, full of life, and threw herself into her father's arms. Grace stood nearby, smiling through tears. She had lost a son, but helped save hundreds of others. And for the first time, the Anderson mansion was not silent anymore. It was alive, filled with the laughter of a child and the warmth of a second chance. Sometimes, the person you least expect walks into your life and teaches you how to feel again. Don't forget to share this story, because hope is the most powerful medicine of all.